So hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast, another episode, a fourth episode for the season as we look ahead to Cheltenham's open meeting. And lads, what a fantastic weekend's race. And of course we've Punchestown on Sunday as well, the Morgiana Hurdle. I'm joined by Ronan Groome, Andrew Blair White and Mr. Mike Vince, of course, fresh from a day where he was glued to the TV screens watching Cabaret Queen at Clonmel. Mike, I think it's a case of we live to fight another day.
Yeah, I think it'll take some hours to clear the mud off her hoofs, I think. Very, very testing. She just, in the end, I think it was quite significant that the two horses that won the two big races at Clonmel were the two course specialists. Shattered Love, I mean, she's 3 from 3. She's a Cheltenham Festival winner. I still think she ran a half-decent race against Shattered Love. And also Buckerson, as well as a horse that loves the place. Wind and rain, just one of those days, but she's fine and she's more than paid for a day out. And I'll await the smoke signals emerging from Closutton in due course about what happens next. Maybe that 2.5 is a bit short for her as well, but we will see. But you know, just want one more phone call, and that is the morning after call to say that she's fine and well, and we'll take it from there.
Lads, coming up on the show this week, of course, special guest with Gavin Sheehan. We were lucky enough to speak to Gavin. Obviously a fabulous book of rides. Gavin just back from injury himself. Cork native, rides Simply the Bets and Rouge Vif. How exciting is that this weekend, of course, in the slower chase? Let's hear from Gavin Sheehan. So delighted to be joined on the Champ.ie podcast by retained rider for Andrew and Cape Brooks, County Cork native, Mr. Gavin Sheehan. You're very welcome to the Champ.ie podcast.
Thanks very much. Glad to be on.
And Gavin, I suppose, first of all, it'd be rude not to mention Cork's dramatic victory, I suppose, over Kerry last weekend. A winning goal, literally with the last kick of the ball. I'd say that lifted your spirits.
Oh, definitely did. We haven't beaten them in a while, have we? But it was a good game. I didn't actually watch myself, but my father was telling me all about it. But I seen the last kick of the game, and fantastic high ball in. Supposed to be a fine probably, but we take the goal.
Always good for a Cork man to do a number on Kerry, I suppose. But Gavin, back to the race. And Gavin, listen, you broke your wrist back at Perth in September, and I want to ask you first of all, anyway, how's the recovery gone? And I presume it's all systems go for Cheltenham this weekend.
Yeah. So I got a fall a couple of weeks ago, 7 weeks ago above a Perth, and I didn't know initially. It swelled up that night. I took X-rays, and it took a bit of. Well, I went and rode out probably about 6 days later, and I knew there was something not right. But I went in to the hand specialist, and he X-rayed it and got an MRI, and he basically delivered me bad news, and I was nearly crying when he was telling me how bad it was. I was going to have screws in and wire. That to me was that's the whole season gone. I was thinking initially, but time flies. The recovery has been coming on very well. Got the wire out there the other day, and more movement in my hand, more strength. I'll continue to go down to Oaksey House and spend plenty of time down there and get my hand back better than ever.
Look, you have a mouth-watering book of rides this weekend. You know, we'll start with Simply the Bets. Obviously, he won at last year's Cheltenham Festival, won the plate. He's set to make his reappearance in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. How's he coming into the race?
Joe Quinton, his assistant trainer, he rides him out every day, and he's about 13.5 stone. But he's doing plenty of work with him, and I watched him work there the other day, and he looks fantastic. And Joe said that he felt better than he did going into the Cheltenham Festival, so that says enough to me.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, how far do you think he could go this year? Do you think he could be a Grade 1 horse?
To be honest, when I pulled up after Cheltenham Festival winner, I straight away was thinking to myself, this is going to be a graded horse. That's what I had in my head. And now he's hopefully bigger and stronger. I think he could be a graded horse.
Yeah, I did read your comments actually just in your blog. Was obviously you reckon he's really strengthened up over the summer. Could be a different horse this year.
I think he could be. To me, last year he was running over. He started off over 2 And then when he stepped up to 2.5, he was better again. But he's a kind of horse that strikes to me that we could nearly go back. If he wins on Saturday, all going well, touch wood. He's a horse to me that we could end up going for something like the Tingle Creek, go back down and trip. And then he's a horse that, he could nearly step up to the 3 mile and go for King George. That's if he wins on Saturday. That they're the kind of targets that you could set. But I could see him going back in trip, and I could see him stepping up in trip. He's a very straightforward horse, and he's got plenty of class about him.
Yeah, you mentioned stepping back in trip. Obviously, Rouge Vif was fancied by many shrewd judges going into the Arkle last year, and obviously came out the last day at Cheltenham on his reappearance and won off 156 doing handstands. Surely to God, he's just one step away now from becoming a real serious champion chase contender.
Yeah, definitely. I was there that day, and to be honest with you, he kind of blew me away. That was a serious performance. I thought he jumped brilliant. The whole ways he was just he was good the whole ways on it, and from turning in, I thought he'd just stay at it, but he picked up and winged the second last, and he was just gone from them.
Yeah, like you've rode him, and you've rode St. Calvados, who we'll speak about in a moment, and you've also rode simply the Bets. In your mind, do you think he could be the best of the three?
He could be. I love Rouge Vif because, I riding him in the Arc last year. I jumped the first 2 and I knew I was beat because it just wasn't going to the ground. But what I love about Rouge Vif is that he's just all heart. Like, he still stayed on, finished third, and he ran a brilliant race. But I knew myself the ground was kind of gone for me. That's the only thing about him. But yeah, he's all heart. St. Calvados has been a brilliant horse down through the years, and I think stepping up to 3 mile will be at his best. But simply the best Bets, he seems like he's got the full package. He can go on any kind of ground. He loves Cheltenham. He's 2 from 2 around there, and yeah, he seems to me like he's got the full package. But he could be my favourite horse if he goes ahead and performs like I hope he does on Saturday.
And just sticking with Rouge Vif just for one moment, because I know that people have mentioned about the ground for him, Gavin, and that he obviously would like it good. But do you think at a Cheltenham Festival, if it was good to soft, if soft was in the description, would you be anyway concerned?
The better it is, I think, the better he could be. But good to soft to be fine on his aim. Yeah. It was on the slow side of good the last day, and it didn't bother him, and if it was good to soft, he still would have won. It's just when it's soft, borderline, going on to heavy, that's when it becomes a bit of a problem.
Yeah, and St. Calvados, we just mentioned him a couple of moments ago. Obviously, he travelled so well, actually, in the Ryanair chase. And, some might say he was maybe even unlucky not to beat Min on the day. What sort of feel did he give you? I believe he might start off in the Betfair chase, I thought I read, and maybe to go down the 3 mile route. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think he needs to step up and trip. I schooled him there this morning, and he's jumping more like a 3 miler. He's just not as slick up over him now. He's in front and he's not in the race mood because he's just up in front dawdling along. But I thought in the Ryanair, I promise you, I got some spin off him. He just jumped from fence to fence, and he was quick and he travelled. The way he went down that hill, was just, I thought, this lad just puts his head down and gallops all the way to the line, he wins. But unfortunately, just missed the last, and then had to regather momentum and get going again, and had to switch sides and things. Just got, I didn't peg him back as quickly as I wanted. But I think step up and trip would be key to him. I think he's done very well winning over 2 mile when he did. But 2.5 was the making of him last season, and this season I think the making of him would be 3 mile.
Is the King George in the back of your mind?
Yes, it is. That is the plan. I'm just not sure of the sharpness of the track, everything right-handed and things. He's gone right-handed before, but I think we'll take another view after the Betfair Best Fair Chase. That's his main aim. He's in great form. He felt very good this morning. I think that's that's kind of our main plan at the moment is the King George going to it. But depending on what we do with the Simply the Bets to be another thing.
Yeah, and just one horse, just coming away, I suppose, slightly from Cheltenham and from the Brooks battalion. So Go Law, like I know you have a strong relationship with Jamie Snowden. He was a 4-year-old that you also mentioned in your blog. He won by 27 lengths or Wincant on the last day. He earned a couple of quotes. I think it was for the RSA Chase. Do you think he could go down that route, or would you say that the lads might maybe mind him a little bit this season, or how good is he?
I don't know how good he is, to be honest with you. That was his fifth run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's after winning 4. And the time he got beat he wasn't long after coming up from France and tipped away around over hurdles, and he probably just wasn't himself. But this year he's a nice strong horse. His jumping has been class. But for a 4-year-old, still that little bit inexperienced in things, I don't know what level he could reach, but he's very exciting anyway going forward, and I thought he was very impressive the other day. I obviously rode him around Fontwell first time over fences, and he didn't miss a beat Doyle ways. But it's one of those, like, as soon as they came to me, he was just gone himself without me even asking him. I actually think to myself that he might go for that 2-mile race at Sandown, the Henry VIII. I think he might go there for the Grade 1. That's definitely a possibility. But yeah, he whether he does too much before Cheltenham or not, because I think he needed a little bit of a break if he goes for the Sandown race, just to get him back 100% and good and fresh and everything. Because he's already after 3 runs over fences now, and a lot of them horses aren't even after a run yet.
Yeah, only a 4-year-old as well, of course, but definitely an exciting horse, Gavin. And just one horse that impressed me when winning both times this year, and we didn't see him, I think it was for 550 days. I think the last time we saw him was in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. Anemoy. And he won twice this year, over fences and over hurdles. He's rated 133 over both. How good do you think he is? Because I think he was only a baby before he got injured. Would I be right in saying?
He was, yeah. He beat Pim. Like, he won his bumper and then went up the air, but he beat Pim over hurdles, and obviously Pim turned out to be a nice horse, but that day I was just so clean, and I thought I was going to get stuffed. But he turned into the straight at Ascot and just took off like a fresh horse, and after that I thought he was nearly my favourite horse. It related to the Lawrence, good flat horse, Carol Burks, but I love him. He's just got a lovely cruising speed. He's got a lot of things going for him. The only thing that he doesn't have going for him is that he doesn't travel that well in his races. He's a bit workmanlike. If he travelled a little bit more on it, he'd be a lot better a horse. He won well the other day over fences, and I think we're going to go down that route now. He schooled at home, and he schooled well enough, but he didn't jump as well at home as what he did on the track. The track, he actually came alive a bit more, which was brilliant. But I love him. He's a bit of a dude at home. He's a bit of a character and things. But I'm not sure.
Was it a serious issue, Gavin, that kept him off?
Oh, it was, yeah. He went for a big operation. He had something twisted in his stomach. It was a big operation. He had a long time off. But I to be honest with you, last year I was thinking, or the year before, I was thinking this could be a future champion hurdle horse. But he just doesn't seem to travel well enough to do that. But I think he's got all the ability in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll take a couple of questions, Gavin, just from Twitter. Shane O'Hanlon asks, what's the plan for Daragiani?
Yeah, he won well above at Sedgefield. He's a very exciting horse. That was a breathtaking performance, really, for just a race around Sedgefield. He's going to go hurdling now. Darrell Jacobs has been doing a bit of schooling on him up over hurdles. I'll probably school him there. next week. But he jumps well, touch wood, but he'll go hurdling because he's a bit older than what we'd. A 4-year-old. He's a 5-year-old. If he was a 4-year-old, he'd probably stay down the bumper route. But this is a 5-year-old. We're going to go hurdling with him. Where he starts or where he goes, I don't know.
Andrew Blair White asks about D'Amateur. He said, after his reappearance on the weekend, what do you think of him, and will the big stay in handicaps chases be the plan for him?
Yeah, Brendan Powell rode him around Sandown the other day. He made a couple of mistakes, but he's a bit like that. He falls asleep in his race and just makes a couple of mistakes. He always lands out a bit in his head. But a bigger, stronger horse this year, and he's probably going to have one more run before he goes for the national. I think that's the kind of race that just the speed, tempo, everything in that race just might play into his favour. Right? He's won around Chepstow already. So he likes the track, handles the course very well, and the ground should be a bother for him.
Brilliant. Paddy Pacer asks, you've rode for plenty of trainers around the UK. When Nicky Henderson hands in his licence, who's going to challenge Paul Nicholls?
To be honest with you, Dan Skelton's operation, they've got such a big operation, banging out winners all the time. Because of their operation, the way they have the system going, the only thing they need now is more bigger winners to get lift up the prize money. Because they get a lot of winners through the year, but just to lift up that prize money, I think they need them better horses. But he's definitely one that could challenge them. Olly Murphy has got a lot of seriously nice horses inside the yard, very well bred horses, and he's definitely a young trainer, like on the up, and he's just got a great system of training, everything. Love the way he trains, and he just keeps it simple. But yeah, he's one in a couple of years' time that will be challenging for the title.
Chunister asks, if you could ride any horse in training outside of the Brooks Whittington Alliance, what would it be and why?
There's plenty of them I'd like to ride, to be honest with you. the way Cernan went the other day in the Charlie Hall, he was jumping them fences like they were hurdles. Highest rated chaser. He's probably the standout horse of them all.
He's the one to beat in the King George, isn't he?
I think he is, yeah. Bar St. Calvados. But yeah, I think he is. He's got a lot of quality about him. But I was just amazed the way he was jumping them fences. He'd be jumping them like they were hurdles. People worried about him staying and everything. I thought he was class.
Brilliant stuff. And Gavin, listen, you rode 70 winners. Correct me now if I'm wrong on this last season, and your best season to date in terms of prize money. What's the goal this season?
73 was my best ever season. Don't know what I have in prize money. I'm not too bothered about prize money for myself. What I want this season, I'm probably not going to beat that tally because I've been out injured and COVID stopped us for a while. But now it's just a couple of graded winners, to be honest with you. Big winners is what I want. I want a big winner Saturday. I want a big winner Sunday, and then the following week I want another big winner. It's big winners. Hopefully is what I want. And the bigger winners will hopefully put my name out there a little bit more and get more rides. And all I want is just winners, to be honest with you.
Definitely in the hot seat this weekend, Gavin Sheehan, a fabulous book of rides. And we're going to finally just ask you, for the Champ.ie listeners, what's your one dark horse for the season? Maybe one that we might not have heard about.
You mentioned Dargiani. There's another one there called Quilla Smart that won at Marker Racing the other day. He spoke to David Bass after. David Bass was actually very taken by the horse. I only rode him out once when he was down in great training with Christian Williams, but he looked very promising. Kate and Andrew Brooks owned him, but he looked very promising the other day.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, Gavin Sheehan, and I wish you the very best of luck this week. And no doubt you'll be having plenty of Saturday winners as the season goes on. I'm sure we'll catch you at some stage between now and the end of the season. Thanks very much, Gavin.
Touch wood. Keep my head down and keep kicking.
See you later.
Hop on. Cheers.
Coming on to Saturday, 17 runners in the Paddy Power Chase, the big one. Of course, at 2:15. Give you a show of betting here. Mr. Fisher, 9-2 for Nicky Henderson. He's been well supported this week. Saint Sonny has been a long time fancy for this 9-2. Ran, of course, in the Marsh Chase last year. Simply the Bets 9-2, Al Dancer 15-2, Slate House 9-1, Cyril Delac, who's having his first run for David Pipe 10-1, Happy Diva 11-1, Spirit of Games 20-1, and it's 14-1 bar the rest of those. Andrew, I suppose a big weekend for yourself, anti-post wise. Simply the Bets, of course, here, San Ra, latest exhibition. Gavin's words about Simply the Bets, of course, he could be the full package. That must get you fairly excited.
Yeah, it does. I loved this horse last year. He was possibly the only horse that kept winning for me on the 8 points to play that we did. I won on him around 2 or 3 times, I think, and he was very good at Cheltenham. Now, he does have to go and improve again this year if he wants to make up into a Grade 1 horse. He probably would want to be winning this race, or certainly coming very close to winning it if he's got a chance long term in a Ryanair. I went a bit full circle on him. I thought at one stage his price was getting too short, but on further looking into the race, I do think he is the most likely winner. He's got that hardened handicap experience. He won on his reappearance last year, beating a Venetia Williams horse called Espoir de Guy, who won a few handicaps as well. I think Mr. Fisher's a pretty good horse. He probably is better than this handicap mark, but I'd have it in my head that he might be a bit soft. He only wins in small field races. Both times he's been to Cheltenham, I know they have been the Supreme and the Marsh. He has been beaten. Those are the only times he's come up against a field of kind of this type of size. So I'd just be a little bit dubious about him. He potentially is better than this mark, but I'd want to see it before I'd believe it. And it just comes back to Simply the Bets. I can't see this Saint Sonny. Like, obviously the Nichols team think he's very well handicapped, but he's shown nothing to me that would suggest that he potentially is. So I'd take the wise call of Simply the Bets in this, and if I was to maybe have an each way play at a bigger price, I'd back Happy Diva, who came right behind him in the Brown Advisory. She's around 11-1. I think that form could stand the test of time in this race.
Well, you'll have to give us that promised version of Tina Turner's Simply the Best if Simply the Best comes in here. Ronan Groome, I want, again, an objective opinion on this one here, non-biased. What way do you see the Paddy Power? Where is the value at this stage?
It's an excellent race, Barry. It really is. It's one of my favourite races of the season. I can see why the horses at the top of the market are there at the top of the market. They're like the second season horses or the coming horses. Mr. Fisher, he's only had 3 starts over fences, and he obviously ran very well in the Marsh. St. Sonnet has only had 2 starts over fences for Paul Nicholas. Simply the Bets has won 4 out of his 5. They're the kind of coming horses, I guess. And in this race, you're always looking for the horse that might be the Grade 1 horse that's running off a mark that is not a Grade 1 mark now, so they're looking to take advantage. But the horse that's already won the Grade 1 for me is the most interesting here, and I think he is underestimated in the market, and that's Slate House for Colin Tizard and Robbie Power. Like, if anyone recalls this race last season, he was absolutely tanked into the race. He was basically coming to win at second last. Now, obviously, you can't say for sure he was going to win, but he moved up right through the field for Robbie Power, and just kind of silly kind of fall at the last. He crumpled in landing and fell. He's won twice since that. I think he won a race at Huntingdon it was, and then went on and won the Grade 1 Caught Star at Kempton on St. Stephen's Day. That's obviously a Grade 1 win. You can call the race, it kind of fell apart, but he beat Black off. But I thought he won kind of going away. He won snug enough that day, even though it was only a length at the end. Robbie Power was kind of just holding on to him at the end. They thought enough of him then to run him in the Cotswold Chase against senior horses like Santini, and he went off 4-1 for that. Like I think they were even talking about going for the Gold Cup. Like he's always been a really, really well thought of horse. I think he cost 350 grand or something silly like that. Tom Malone bought him back in the day, and he's always been this kind of hypey kind of a horse. But he's back in here off a mark of 152. That's just £5 higher than he was last year when he was coming to win the race. I think it's interesting that they come here straight away as well. He won on the seasonal debut last year. He hacked up over this sort of course and distance. I'll take him at 10-1, 9-1. I think in generally over the top three in the market any day of the week. To be honest, the other one I just wanted to flag up as an outsider to note was ASO. I think he's around 20-1. You'd probably get bigger on the day, definitely bigger on the exchanges because of his form figures, and he's a 10-year-old, so he's like at the opposite side of the spectrum to most of these horses. But if you look at his Ryanair form over this sort of course and distance, like he was second to Ronan in a Ryanair, he was third in another Ryanair, he won over this course and distance off this mark on New Year's Day in 2019. Look, I think he's another one that they've decided to come here first time up, and he has a good record fresh as well. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ran a big race. He's 20-1 there now on the day, but I'm all over the Sleigh House. I think 10-1 is I wouldn't be surprised if he joined the leaders at the top of the market come the off time. So Sleigh House for me.
All right, Ronan. You often talk about horses that are well found at the top of the market, and Mr. Fisher, Saint Sonnet, like obviously they have plenty to prove. He's probably the one there that's the least exposed. Saint Sonnet, Simply the Bet's obviously a big hike in the weights, but Mike, I think I have a feeling from speaking to you earlier on, we might be on the same page here. You know, the horse who won the plate 2 years ago and was coming definitely to make a challenge last year at the Cheltenham Festival was Sierra de Lac. Now there's between himself and Simply the Bets, there's a good £8 swing. Obviously he tipped up, took a horror fall, Sierra de Lac, but he was definitely the one off 150 here. He's 10-1. The pipes obviously target this meeting year in, year out, and traditionally would have had an awful lot of winners. I believe you've been down to David Pipes this week, or was it the week before? And would you be keen on him here?
I would be keen. I would be keen, with one large caveat. I mean, he led and he was still just about in front when he took that horrible heavy fall. And you just do not quite know about how the horse's head is, how he is mentally. He's had his wind done since, and so often they do come fresh. And let's remember that not only did he win the plate in 2019, but he also won the handicap chase on Trials Day in January. So his last two runs before that at Cheltenham, it ended up in the winner's enclosure. And I think at the age of 7, this is a race where they'll go from the front. I think if he's a double figure price, he's a knocking good each way bet, and I can see him very much being involved in the finish. But I also want to mention one other, which I thought the fascinating one for me here is we've got John Joe O'Neill and Senior and Junior in different camps here. John Joe O'Neill Jr. riding Brilliant Das, who was second in the race last year. I don't think the ground is going to be anything like soft enough for what is JP's, I think I'm right in saying, only runner in the race. But I can see the old man and Sky Pirate, who ran a decent race for me at Wetherby, and is around about 20-1 with 17. There is some decent each way prizes knocking about, running a big race. He'll run into form. Of course, John Joe won it with the likes of Exotic Dancer. But for me, my two against the field will be Sierra du Lac and the bottom one, Sky Pirate, each way.
On to Sunday, lads, 2:25 at Cheltenham, of course, is the big race on the day. It's the slower chase, competitive race, lads. Put the kettle on, of course, here. She's the 2-1 favoured. Arkle winner, of course, last year. The Arkle third, Rouge Vif, 2-1. We spoke to Gavin Sheehan. Really likes him. Defi de Sol, 5-2. He's took a bit of a walk in the market. Duke de Ginevras, who was the 2018 Arkle winner and hasn't really done much since. He's an 8-1 shot. Riders on the Storm, 8-1. Forest Behan, 20-1. Lads, bet of the weekend in here. Rouge Vif. How impressive was he the last day? Andrew Blair White.
Yeah, he was excellent. He was. I wasn't sure whether Cheltenham was maybe his track up until that run. His runs at Cheltenham had been a little bit below par. He was well beat by Put the Kettle On in the Arkle. As you know, Barry, he's not a horse I've ever particularly taken to. I would probably say he has the edge on Put the Kettle On in this, actually, just because he's gone and done it there at the October meeting, and I'm not sure, because I'm not sure this walk in the market is this just going to be indicative that Defi de Soy isn't going to get declared. Otherwise, I can't understand it at all. I'd have him much the best of these three, and you know, Barry, that I tried to take him on all of last year. But I think former beating Undersow, beating Lost in Translation as a novice is much better than these two have ever come up against. And the Hobbs' horses this week have seemed to have turned the corner. A few of them have run well. I saw he had another winner or two today. I would say perhaps that maybe the market drift is maybe he isn't going to run, but if he runs and he's that price, I can't understand it. I have him head and shoulders above these other two, I must say.
Yeah, you make a good point that's you know, I suppose based on what he's done, you could only maybe assume that maybe he isn't going to take his chance here. It is a bit of a strange one, but even at the weights, like as it is, obviously Rouge Vif is getting £3 here from Defi de Soy. Like he wouldn't have a whole lot to find, and you know, if the ground stays on the better side, if it doesn't turn up soft, Mike, you'd have to think that Rouge Vif is going to take an awful lot of beating here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all assuming that So Royal, who is still in the race, isn't going to go. I've heard of no plan B for Defi de Soy. I've got to say that. This has always been the target. Before I mention the one that I actually fancy, I did catch up with Henry de Bromhead, who has got the Arkle winner, Put the Kettle On, Aidan Coleman back on, and these were his thoughts.
Yeah, Put the Kettle On's in great form. She's due to go over to Cheltenham for the Schlurer Chase. She seems to love it over there. And so she's going over there this weekend. She's in mighty form, working well, so looking forward to that.
How much is it important with March in mind that you get to run into a horse like that at Cheltenham?
It's nearly as much that she loves the place so much. Her form is really, you know, she's really progressed on her two runs there. So she seems to really enjoy it. And it's as much that as anything, to be honest. So, yeah, that's probably why.
I think I've loved Riders on the Storm. And remember, is a Group 1 winner, won the Betfair Ascot Chase last year. Fell when coming to challenge at the festival. The jumps are clear round. You would have no worries about that yard. It's been off 248 days. I think he's a big price. Rouge Vif, yeah, he won top weight in a handicap. If he's going to be a serious contender for Champion Chase Honours, he has to win this. I think Riders on the Storm will beat him.
Am I right in saying, Mike Vince, you put him up for the novice handicap back in 2018?
Yep.
Yeah, and had a hard race, of course, against Surname last year prior to Cheltenham. I know Frank Hickey was absolutely all over Riders on the Storm for the Rider Chase. Ronan, how do you see this one going? Put the Kettle On, the Irish Angle. I've just never really been a fan personally. What about you?
You say that, and you're probably like a lot of people, Barry, because she just seems to be this underrated mare. It's probably because she ran during the summer last season, and it was kind of like an afterthought for them to run at this meeting, and she won well, and she beat Al Dancer, which is one of the big fancy British novice chasers at the start of the season, and everyone just thought it was like, oh God, this is just poor British form, the novice form. How is this mare who's been running during the summer in Ireland beat him? But she came back then and won the Arkle, and she jumped for fun that day. It was an absolutely excellent performance, and herself and Fakir Duderies have pulled a gaping 18 lengths clear of Rouge Vif. You have to remember, I know you're saying Rouge Vif has the form in the book this season and has won well, but on that form he has plenty to do to make it up with Put the Kettle On. I think she's well found in the market now, to be honest, but I am interested in her going forward for the Champion Chase, and obviously if you say that, then you got to think she's going to do it here. The only qualm I have is just that she's coming here on her first run of the season, whereas last season when she was coming into this meeting at Cheltenham, she was on the run of 4 or 5 wins, and no doubt that Henry will have her ready to roll, but maybe it is just a slight match fitness thing that might just catch her out. But I don't really see anyone going with her up front, so I think she can get her own way with Aidan Coleman again, and I think she's the right favourite. I think she'd be hard to beat without having a huge opinion on the odds that of having a bet. Obviously, if Defi Desal doesn't run, it's going to be a softer race, but I think Put the Kettle On is the right favourite, even if he does run.
Yeah, I'll have to say I really liked Rouge Vif after Warwick last season. Just thought his jumping, he was my Arkle fancy, and just interesting listening to Gavin as well, that he knew after 2 or 3 fences that he wasn't going to win in his eyes, and the big thing he thought he took from the race was he just stayed galloping all the way. It was just the ground wasn't in his favour whatsoever. So look, I mean, if you take with that, he's an improved horse this year, and obviously we saw him last time. What he done to that field of good handicappers. I don't think you could just put it down as a freak result. Like, I think it has to be taken very, very seriously. And Rouge Vif, in my mind, wins this weekend, and I think he may well develop up Camp Poursois' leading rival this season. That's certainly the way I see it going. Because I think Defi Desal, even if he does go, I just think he needs to go up and trip. I just think his jumping, Andrew, I think you'd agree with me. Last year we were saying that his jumping at 2 miles, when push comes to shove, he's just not going to, at championship level at Cheltenham, especially when Camp Poursois was around. Obviously that never developed, but we'll see how that plays out. But certainly I would be having Rouge Vif over the whole field there. I think he's my bet of the weekend. Coming on to 3:00 at Cheltenham on Sunday, of course, it's the Great Wood Hurdle, lads. You might remember my famous Harambe selection last year, Ronan Groome, big anti-post pick. He's in here again. He's actually 16 to 1 shot again this year. Edward Stone for Alan King is your 5 to 1 favourite. Also for Alan King, he of course has been long time touted for this. Proschema is 11 to 2. Main Fact 6 to 1. Time White 6 to 1. Tegrek is 8 to 1. Hunter's Call 10 to 1. Seba Sapal is 12 to 1. Strong Glance 12 to 1. Stop laughing at me, Ronan Groome. Thinking 12 to 1. Ballyandy is 14 to 1. And it's 14 to 1 the rest. Ronan Groome, dissect this big handicap.
Yeah, it's not as good a race as the chase that we just talked about on Saturday. You have only one horse rated 154 in here, and it's Ballyandy, like very well exposed at this stage. That said, I still think he could run okay, Ballyandy. I think he ran a cracker on a seasonal debut to So Royal, who obviously won at Wincanton and kind of uprated that form. I wouldn't be surprised Ballyandy ran quite well again. He's obviously got course and distance form. Yeah, look, with that in mind, I'd be inclined to kind of look down the market here, and just a bit disappointed with some of the prices. Like the one that kind of came down on was Hunter's Call for Olly Murphy. Now, he's a 10-year-old, but he's an unexposed 10-year-old, and I thought he ran an excellent fourth in the Galway Hurdle, a race that probably wasn't run to suit. They went quite slow in the Galway Hurdle this year, and if you remember, Aramond just kind of sprinted away from them late on. Aramond's a good Grade 1 horse and would probably be a champion hurdle contender if he didn't get injured after that. And I just think Hunter's Call is interesting, especially for the jockey booking. Now, obviously, these bookings can kind of change because we don't have declarations yet, but Aidan Coleman, as it is at the moment, is declared to ride Hunter's Call, and he had a choice between another Olly Murphy horse there called Strong Glance, who was second last time out in a good handicap hurdle at Aintree, and Fergus Gregory's down to ride him. I just thought that was interesting. Hunter's Call, obviously, you remember, he was Olly Murphy's first big winner. He won the race that used to be called the Ladbroke Hurdle at Ascot. He absolutely hosed home that day, but he just hasn't. He had a bad injury, a couple of injuries after that, and he hasn't ran much, but he's a 10-year-old, and I think there could be a little bit of mileage in him off this mark of 137 in a race that I just don't think it's as strong as the race we just talked about, the handicap chase. I think it's a lot more kind of an open looking contest. The other one I thought was interesting was the one you couldn't pronounce for love or money. That's Sebastopol for Tom Lee.
Let me just cut in there because you're going to steal my thunder. Because I'm going to say I don't pick horses on names because that was my selection and I couldn't even pronounce it.
Yeah, well, that's a start. You need to be able to pronounce it if you're gonna go into.
I was going to spell it, but I wasn't able to pronounce it. What was pronounce it?
Sebastopol.
Do you want me to make the case for it, or are you going to?
You go on ahead then, and I don't want to steal your thunder because I've given a selection already, but I did like him, so you take Sebastopol.
Yeah, no, look at Ronan. I just thought he was a good winner of a point to point, and he's quite lightly raced, isn't he? Actually, in fairness, he's only had a couple of runs, and in the Scottish county hurdle up at Musselburgh, I think he's only gone up. He actually didn't go up that much for that win. He's going to be better on better ground. It was interesting, actually. He was down to run against Kid Commando at Ascot 2 weeks ago, and obviously we saw what he'd done, and it's interesting that they avoided that and came here. Tom Lacey did say that he is going to target some of the shorter distance handicaps. So obviously this was on the radar for quite some time. 11 stone, Johnny Burke, great form, and of course the stable as well. Last Sunday as well had a big winner. Well, not a big winner, but Admiral, of course, who ran in the champion in Bumper last year. For the team, so the team may be starting to come into a small bit of form. It was nice to see them win a winner last week. 142, I think he could achieve higher than that. The other one, actually, and you were going to mention too, but Harambe, obviously, like, it was interesting last year when he won the Greatwood Hurdle. He won it off, I think it was 136. He's now gone up to 143. He had a run. He was brought down actually when he ran behind Pictoree in the big handicap at Newbury. But that was really only his only other run of the season last year. And obviously the season was cut short. So he had quite a light campaign last year. He's only gone up a few more points. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran a big race again. That's Harambe, 16-1 now from 25. Bit of support for him. But Sebastopol, there you go. That's my selection for the Greatwood Hurdle this year. 12-1. Mike Vince.
Yeah, I'm looking at this race. I think that a lot of people will be desperately hoping that Ballyandy does turn out. I don't think Main Fact will run. I didn't get the vibes positively about it. The reason, very simply, is wants bottomless ground. Got an entry at Haydock next weekend and back over 2 miles. I don't think he'll run. And if Tudor City doesn't turn out, we could be looking at a considerable hike in the weights. That's the first thing to say. And obviously, we don't have the declarations until tomorrow. I'll mention a couple here. I actually think Pushima will run a huge race for the Skeltons. Good second at Weatherby on seasonal reappearance. But there are two others I need to mention. Brian Ellison's got an extraordinary record in this race with that horse called Nisha. And he won it with something else as well, the name of which I've forgotten. He's running the 4-year-old Cormier, who's gone back-to-back wins, and he's put Danny McMenamin up on it rather than Brian Hughes, who rides Balinska for Evan Williams. And I think that's interesting. And I am totally clueless, unless he's been taking lessons from Uncle Willie, and there's every chance he has been taking lessons from Uncle Willie, as to what you make of number 21 at the bottom of the list, the Shunter. 7-year-old of Emmett Mullins, and of course, Emmett's got a terrific record. He's obviously been at Uncle Willie's after-school classes and learnt a lot. Horse that was fourth in a Grade 3 novice chase at Cork last time. Can't speak to Will of Cork because it's under 6 feet of water at the moment. And Alain Corley's been booked for this for yonks. Yes, are they exploiting a low handicap mark? I've never ever has the Mullins done that before now. The Shunter, have a look and see what you think on Sunday. Cornier as well, but I think Pushima will win.
Andrew Blair White.
Yeah, well, the two I was looking at have already been mentioned. Ronan made a very good case for Hunter's Call, and I'd be backing up those sentiments. I think my only problem at the moment with Hunter's Call is that Olly Murphy's horses aren't running very well, and they're most notably not jumping very well, as I've unfortunately burnt my fingers a few times over the last few weeks finding that out. But I think the fourth in the Galway Hurdle is almost the best form on offer in a race like this. I think Aramon would win this. So I think that's interesting. Aidan Coleman, I suspect, will ride it as he is jocked up to do so, which is good. And the other one was the Shunter. I just think it is bizarre. This horse was leading up into having seemingly a pretty nice season as a novice chaser. Obviously ran a questionable race on his stable debut for Emmett Mullins that was well publicised. Then hacked up in a maiden hurdle, hacked up in 2 chases, got beat around Cork, and now he's running 4 furlongs down in a 2-mile handicap hurdle. It's almost too bizarre to not be interested in it. So I suspect I'd have a little bit each way on him. I think it's a fascinating runner, as Mike alluded to.
Between Emmett Mullins and Ronan McAnally, I think there was a couple of comments under where would John Bond be trained. There was something like 40 likes under a comment for Ronan McAnally. I think he's
Charles Burns again, any.
Yeah, listen, lads. Before we wrap up Cheltenham this weekend, because we're going to come on to Punchestown briefly. Anything, Mike, I'll come to you. Is there anything else across all? There's some cracking novice chases. I think your one was entered there, the big breakaway. But anything, I suppose, novice chasers, anything in any other handicap, anything else at Cheltenham that you've your eye on?
Yeah, the big breakaway is entered for the opening race on Sunday. They've actually done a good job. Sunday used to have basically 2 main races, namely the Schlur and the Greatwood, and not much else, to be blunt. They've improved the quality of the car because they've got that staying chase in there. And the big breakaway is obviously of interest. But just remember, go back to 2015, and Nicky Henderson had a double that day with Altior and Sprinter Sacra. So all you can say is watch whatever wins at Cheltenham on Sunday, put it in your notebooks with the future. Remember, I still can't wait for the big breakaway to make his debut over fences. And of course, delighted that the Tislard team had a good day at Exeter in the week. Signs that, and Andrew, I think it was referring earlier to the fact that the Hobbs horses were starting to fire, while down in Dorset, things are starting to stir as well.
Anything else, Ronan or Andrew, you want to mention for Cheltenham?
Yeah, I'd give a quick mention there, Barry, to Kilfillan Cross. I think he'd go for that staying chase no, sorry, he runs on Saturday, doesn't he? Sorry. I thought he was in that long staying chase. He runs on Saturday in the 3 mile 1 furlong staying chase. He's got excellent form at Cheltenham. He was second to Milan native. I think he was absolutely chucked in the Kimura last season. And it's in the amateur riders race there. I think he should go well. And yeah, that's the only one that caught my eye as of yet.
Yeah, I just had the one that I think actually he's a short price, but I think he's a big price, if that makes any sense. In the Supreme Novice Trial on Sunday, you can still get 6-4 for third time lucky. I can't understand, based off the opposition he's coming up against, how this horse isn't 1-2. It's a very, very average grade 2 race. I think all the signs is that he will run, and I've scooped up 6-4 myself. I think it's a massive price. I think he's far too good for the field.
We're going to come on to Punchestown now. We might as well are you doubling him up with latest exhibition in the Florida Pearl?
I'm not sure. He's opened up 4-6 for the Florida Pearl, which is a fairly mucky price. I wouldn't be overly involved in that. Look, I really, really hope this horse wins. As you well know, Barry, I love this horse. I love Paul Nolan, and he did it really nicely on his chase debut. He's a real old-fashioned chaser, old-fashioned 3 mile slogger. He only does enough. His jumping kind of got better as things went on. I think that beginners was fairly strong for the time of year, and hopefully he takes that next step forward. I assume this has been obviously the target since then probably step onto the 3 mile grade 1 around Christmas at Leopardstown in store, and then maybe straight to the RSA after that. But I'd be more hoping he could be advertising my anti-post price on him rather than actually getting stuck in at 4-6.
Fair enough, Ronan. One of your favourites to see is entered here, just moving through the card on Sunday at Punchestown, Ellie May.
Yeah, huge fan of hers. I thought she was excellent last season. I'd be interested in her as well. Now that they have a mayor's chase, that she'd be top of my list for things like that. It was interesting that they decided to dodge. I think they called her year after she won last season in Thurles, I think it was, that Grade 2 chase. They weren't going to go to Cheltenham or Aintree or Punchestown. They kept her back for this year. She's a 6-year-old now, and when you think she's like rated 140, I think she'd be interesting in something like a handicap chase off that mark, like something like the Paddy Power or whatever. But I think she could rank really highly this season, so I'll be watching her if she's declared for the Mayor's Hurdle, and she's in the hurdle there on Sunday. But it was chasing that she was made her name last season. And yeah, to echo what Andrew said, I think the latest exhibition is probably a lot of people's favourite horse in training without having to have a bet, just because he's such a good story with Paul Nolan and the owners who could have sold him on but decided to keep him and get a few other owners on board to keep him going. Brian Cooper, it's a real kind of comeback story. I really wanted to win at Cheltenham last season, and I think if he could develop into a top class novice chaser this season, I think that's one that could really grab the public's attention. So I'll be hoping he goes well in the Florida part as well.
The big one at Punchestown, the 210, the Morgiana Hurdle, Grade 1.
Yeah, we're all
Soundlaw.
talking about this Soundlaw, and quite understandably. I mean, if it wins a Group 1, then you can expect lots of bits of paper updating odds on the Champion Hurdle, of course, with Epatante yet to start his defence, and there's so many other that may make up into a Champion Hurdle. He has to win, really. I think if all the hype is going to be turned into reality, going to be quite testing. Again, I caught up with Henry de Bromhead because he's going to run this Jason the Militant, who I thought ran a really decent race to be third at Down Royal. Ground's very different. What does Henry think of Jason the Militant?
It's a little bit quicker back than I normally would, but he's tough. And Paul just felt he might have started to race a little bit sooner than he ideally wanted to. And he said he took a good blow after the last. I thought with his flat run at Ferryhouse when he won, that would have had him sort of spot on, but I had left him a little bit short, and have to blame Peter for his grind. Maybe that day it didn't test him enough, but we left him a little bit short, and so he'll come on for his run the other day. And you're right, he's a good horse. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see him in the Morgiana.
But I'm very much in the Soundlaw camp. I think the horse is potentially very exciting. But let me know that he has, in my view, to win to justify the hype on Sunday.
Mike Vince, I agree. I think he will win. I think his jumping needs to improve, but I think with a faster pace in this race, thought his jumping at times was a little bit sketchy the last day, but there was no real signs that his jumping was that bad in the county hurdle. I think faster pace in this here. You're probably going to say, where's the pace going to come from in here? That might be a bit of it. I know Course Sublime was handy at Down Royal on his reappearance last season. Would Super Sunday go on and make it? Jason the Militant's obviously there as well. But I would be definitely in the San Rock camp. I think Abacadabras run. I know you might have slightly different views on this. I mean, I liked Abacadabras all of last season. Gordon Elliott's comments after Down Royal the last day wouldn't be the most encouraging. I thought, really, do we really have any excuses for Abacadabras? I think he won first time up last year. If he was going to be a Champion Hurdle contender, surely he should have been beating the opposition at Down Royal, wouldn't you, thought?
I would. Yeah, you're right, Barry. But I would tend to forgive him and give him another chance at least. And it's more in the fact that I don't actually think Saint Ra is that good, or he hasn't shown himself to be as good as people are letting on. I mean, he's won a county hurdle off a mark of 137. I mean, he won nicely the last day, but he beat Tigress River, a 50-1 9-year-old, by 5 lengths, and Wonderlight and a chaser and Chosen May. I just don't really see the hype around Saint Ra, and I appreciate that the 2 mile hurdle division isn't exactly brimming with talent, so I just think people jump all over one that is obviously huge connections, JP, a 2 mile hurdler for JP and a Olly Murphy horse, but he could well win here, but it's not the strongest looking race, is it? I definitely wouldn't be playing him at odds on for sure. And look, there's interesting ones there, like Course Sublime. He'd be interesting on his first start for Groyle Loughlin. They've always thought a lot of him. He went off only 12-1 for the Champion Hurdle last season. He's having a second start after a wind up. Saldier is a horse people love for some reason as well. He obviously won this race last year, coming off a break. He would probably be appeal to me more his price than Saint Ra if he was to run against him. Seeing as he's got the Grade 1 form in the book, and he won here coming off a break last season. Super Sundays is one of my favourite horses in training. I just think a 10 now and over this trip it might just be a bit of a push for him, and he usually needs his runs at the start of the season, probably more so now that he's 10. But Saldier, if he ran against Saint Ra, I don't think he should be 5-1 and Saint Ra 10-11. I think that's probably way too big of a discrepancy between the two. I probably want to be against Saint Ra even if he does win here in the long term, especially in the Champion Hurdle market. But as you say, it's an interesting race, and we'll see how it pans out.
You're just on the whole Saint Ra thing. I suppose the fact that Aramon comes out and does what he won so impressively at Galway, and the other thing on from the Abacadabras side of things is I'm not so sure he wants soft to heavy ground, and then you come down the field and Saldier.
He won well here last season, though. That's the only thing, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's a stronger race. Would you? I think it's going to be a small field again, maybe 4 horses. They mightn't go that fast. Would you want to be taking odds on Saint Ra?
Yeah, no. Saldier last year beating Classical Dream, who we know I suppose disappointed afterwards. Petit Mouchoir, in fairness, held his level of form. If it was going to go, I suppose, and back anything against the ones at the top of the market, it would be Course Sublime, as you said, second time off a wind up. Andrew, I presume you're in the Saint Ra camp. You probably wouldn't be piling in at that price, I presume.
Yeah, look, I think I'm one of the people that's probably with the hype with Saint-Wa, but I get what Ronan's getting at. What I couldn't understand was he was 20-1 at the start of the season for the Champion Hurdle. He won at Tipperary, and was then shortened to 10-1, which was probably an overreaction in itself. And I looked at the market the other day; he's now into 7-1. He hasn't done anything since Tipperary, so I can't understand how he's shortening the betting even more. I think he will win on the weekend. I don't know why I say it. I think it's going to be a 3 or 4 runner race. I can't see Abacadabras running. Personally, I certainly can't see Super Sunday running after last week. I think it could end up being maybe Saint-Wa, Saldier, Course Sublime, and Jason the Militant, of which I'd assume, well, you'd want Saint-Wa to be winning if he's going to be winning a Champion Hurdle, and probably on soft to heavy ground, I'd be cheering on Jason the Militant to close him home. I think he ran very well. I think he's a better horse actually than Course Sublime personally. I think he wants real soft ground as he showed last year when he beat Beacon Edge at Naas, I think it was, and it was a pretty good run the other day in behind Aspartar and with Abacadabras. So hopefully Saint-Wa wins, but I probably wouldn't be piling in at the price as it is.
And can I throw one in as well? I mean, I think one that went into my eyes, and it's interesting that Patrick Mullins rides it again on Saturday in the bumper. Let's be clear about it. It's not one of his dads. It's Gavin Cromwell's. And I liked him last time out on debut, and he runs again on Saturday.
Mike, we'll stay with you. Nap and MB at the weekend.
I'm going to chance it here. I'm going to nap Sura de Luck in the Paddy Power Gold Cup on Saturday. Although, because I think the big breakaway if he runs will be no sort of price, whatever. And I will go next best on a horse actually of Harry Whittington's that runs at Wetherby on Saturday called Torini. First run since coming from France. James Bowen rides, been off the track a long time, and it's a Swade and Munir horse, and they don't normally bring horses over from France that are less than pretty useful. So Torini for me, probably give the mother-in-law the Christmas present. Hopefully, I'd give her a few quid on that.
Ronan Groome, Nap and MB.
Yeah, Nap Slate House. I just think he's way too big of a price. And next best to go Kilfillan Cross in the 110 Cheltenham on Saturday as well.
Lovely hurling. See me give Carlo a bit of a game in hurling there recently, Ronan.
Yeah.
We haven't asked him about Trump, have we?
It's going to court, Mike. Not decided yet. And Betfair, of course, haven't paid out yet, so we'll just have to wait and see how that one develops. No more politics. Andrew Blair White, nap and MB the weekend.
Probably an odd place to be getting your nap. Tomorrow at Southall, there's a jumps card, the 325. There's a horse called Undela Senier running, owned by a few of my friends over in England. They're very disappointed. They thought she'd go very close last time. She almost fell at the first, had to be pulled up immediately. She's opened up 13-2. I can guarantee she'll go off less than 13-2. So that would be my nap. Next best, stay and do the bets in the Paddy Bar.
You're one loyal man, Andrew Blair White. Nap for me, lads, Rouge Vif. I stick with what I said. I think he does make up into a champion chase contender now. Whether he gets near Shakan Poursois, Andrew Blair White, I'm not so sure. But I think he wins this weekend, and I think he's a very good bet. They're at 2-1 still. And the next best, Ronan Groome, what's the horse I couldn't pronounce? Sebastopol, yes.
Still can't pronounce it.
Sebastopol, 10-1. Sorry, 12-1 for Tom Lacey. Good value, lads. Listen. I was between him and Sarah Delac, but I'm going to go with Tom Lacey's horse here, just in case I can't pronounce it again. I think he is a good bet each way. A good stiff 2 miles around Cheltenham. 141. I think he could be off a nice mark here. Johnny Burke as well. Be nice to see him get in the Saturday's winners enclosure at Cheltenham. But lads, listen, that concludes the weekend preview. It was a bit of a blockbuster special here with Cheltenham, the open meeting, and also the Morgiana Hurdle and Punchestown on Sunday. If you have enjoyed the show and you are not subscribed, please do so. Like and comment below your selections, of course, this weekend. And follow us on our journey this season. Every Thursday, Champ.ie delivering the ultimate racing experience. And thanks very much to the guys again. We'll see you next week on Thursday.